Hi there, my name is Aditi Surana. I am a graphologist and a high performance coach, and this is India's first graphology based podcast show called Absolutely Right. You got it right. It's all about using handwriting to know personality at a deeper level. So each guest that comes on the show, we handpick these guests because we truly believe in their journey and their vulnerable nature to talk about anything and everything that may show up in their handwriting analysis. So it's fascinating to talk about real people, real conversations in a raw format. Today we have a guest. Before I introduce her, let me talk to you about online dating. Have you tried online dating? Personally speaking, I genuinely struggle with this concept. I feel, in graphology, we say signature is all about your public image, all the projections that you make, the way you want people to look at you as, and you kind of manipulate that information all the time. And signature gives away that information. So when I look at these dating apps, I find people are constantly trying to prove how cool they are, how nice they are, how different they are. But then I found this interesting company that instead of using algorithm actually uses human conversation to get to know people. And with the help of their understanding and the team's understanding, they pair you up with somebody just for a cup of coffee. The company is called Sirf Coffee, and our guest today is the co-founder of the company, Naina Hiranandani. Naina originally comes from media background where she worked with the Indian Express, Ogaan Publications, and after going through that journey, 12 years ago, she decided to become an entrepreneur and join her brother in this interesting venture, when people were still exploring Indian dating. So she works with global Indians. So through the conversation, we speak about her personality, her leadership, understanding dating as a space, and how people throw their frustration in any service industry and how to deal with it. Now, if you have all these questions or if you're looking for dating tips, this episode is for you. Go ahead, keep your handwriting sample ready because I will be describing her personality through her handwriting sample, and you can get to know yourself just by matching if those strokes are present in your handwriting or not. Naina will join us in a moment. Stay tuned. Hi, Naina. Welcome to Absolutely Right. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you, Aditi, for having me.
So, dating, and that also NRI dating, how is it like? What is the global citizen dating like? Before I jump in and talk about your handwriting, I've always been curious about why this segment and how is it different from any other dating app?
Anyone that you speak to decided to create something or invent something because there was a void. I think my co-founder and I, Sunil, who's also my brother, really related to that. So we are what you would call a third culture kids. We grew up in Southeast Asia. We went to United Nations schools. So very sort of global upbringing where I had, classmates from 25 different countries.
Wow.
In one sort of classroom, which was very interesting because the conversation wasn't like, the regular, what do you have for lunch today? It was literally like understanding nuances and people. So when you sort of grow older and, you come of age, as they say, so every Indian parent, as usual, gets into the whole shadi kab ho rahi hai? Do you have someone in your life? You've now, everything's great. What are next steps? And I felt like, what was out there at that point, and I'm talking about 2009, 2008, 2009, just didn't resonate with us. So there was the dot-coms in the very traditional sense where you're asked caste and,
Height.
skin tone, height, weight, which I find like really offensive because I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? And then you had traditional panditjis or matchmakers who were community-based. So it was also really strange. Like if I'm, I'm a Sindhi, I could only meet Sindhi guys through this person. And there's like this whole FBI level of vetting that happens without our knowledge, right? So it's that person's parents, your parents having a chat. Depending on how that conversation is received, you would, move to level 2 and do all of that. And so we built Sirf Coffee purely out of this, this need. Like there was just no way for someone who's, not lived in just one city, doesn't have one stereotype mindset, who's educated, who's well-traveled, who's culturally astute, and wants to meet someone like-minded. Right. And that is not a new phenomena. Right. That's been sort of, I think, problematic because that whole, Subhash Ghai era, like Pardes style, where like brides went to the US from here and
Yep.
didn't know what going to America was like, or like they didn't speak English. Like that doesn't cut it anymore. Everyone's
True.
well traveled, they know what's happening around the world. So why is it so hard to meet your partner? It's because you don't have the avenues to do so,
True.
right? And I
And you
think that
created this niche for yourself.
definitely. I mean, I think that was a huge strength. It still is. But what's even more interesting now is that India is part of our top five sort of markets as a service. So,
Okay.
country of 1 billion Indians,
Mm-hmm.
right? Brown people, Desi people. And we still have such a strong resonance for Sirf Coffee because just someone that you meet from Bandra doesn't want to go to a Panditji, doesn't want to do a .com, doesn't want to swipe left or right anymore. You know,
Nice.
everyone's evolving. So it's been interesting to see that. So I love working with both. I mean, I've been in India now for a long time. So I love working with, both types of, members. And I
Nice.
think there's an interesting flavor right there because we're not who we were 20 years ago.
Sure. Sure. So on that note, I have your handwriting, and I'm gonna pick up from that line. We are not who we were, and I remember seeing your handwriting last year in our social initiative during the lockdown, and we spoke about anxiety, and I was doing analysis. Like we had 4 analysis session for free every single day, and somehow you signed up for it, and you said, okay, let me figure this out, let me try this out, and I have that sample. So when I looked at today's handwriting sample, I could see a huge shift. So, and very positively in that sense. So, congratulations before I say anything about your handwriting. But do you have any question for me?
Um, yeah, I know I felt the change as a person and, even circumstantially, right? A lot about, I think, who you are is things that you're self-aware about, but also like mood, environment, just everything, right? And I think last year was just really, I think, difficult for all of us.
In
You know,
different ways, but yes.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just difficult to handle because it was something that we were all going through as one throughout the world and we didn't know how to deal with it. I think a lot of stuff that you said also really helped me address certain things, right? Or try to look at them as solutions. And I think that just gave me a lot of hope as well. So I guess my question is, do you see, I mean, it's remarkable, but you can see that much change just by a sample. I mean, or do you think like has someone really changed, or are they like, is this just, you know, a good phase or a mood? I mean, I don't know. Has that happened as well? Like they can go back to being that.
So I always say this, that personality is a process. So like your body shifts and changes as per your food and the diet and the workout. Similarly, your mind is also changing. So there is no situation for anybody under the sun where the personality remains constant or consistent. We keep changing. Some people are stubborn about their behavior, so they take long time to change certain things. And then there are people who are more flexible and they drop their behaviors very easily. That's the only difference. If I have to look at your handwriting, you are not an easy person to change things. So
Yeah.
let me begin there. And the fact that so many things have changed in your personality, which means you have genuinely worked at internalizing certain behaviors, certain patterns, changing things, by working at it, which is commendable because not everybody can do it and not everybody is willing to walk into the discomfort of changing whatever they know about themselves. So you worked at it, to be a better leader, better spouse, better person, but you are very, very clear that I got to change these things. And
Yeah.
I believe certain processes that you have used have definitely worked for you.
I'm happy to hear that.
Now, one of the things that I see in your handwriting, we call it the tapering ends, which means when you end a letter, the ending stroke, which where for example, letter E is ending. So there is a stroke which goes, at the end and it can become tapering. So it becomes very light by the end.
Yeah.
That is a very peculiar, very minute stroke of indecision. So when you have multiple things to choose from, it becomes very difficult for you to pick your choice. You get into like, okay, but this has this benefit, this should be done, this is so helpful, this person was so nice. And then taking one call and closing on things is a challenge or a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, no, you're right. Right from what I have to order on a Saturday night to like planning a trip and figuring out which destination it's going to be. This is so true. I think with time, I've learned to sort of work on that, right? To just be like, I think what happens, Aditi, is that we're so hard on ourselves, right? If you
Definitely.
made a decision and it's not the best decision, I'm just saying it could be
God.
anything. It could be dating related, it could be work related, and you're just like, damn, I should have seen that coming. I think I get into this mode where I judge myself, based on that. So I think one of the things I probably, want to get better at is just, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and take the good, the bad, the ugly that come with it.
So then if you really have to do this, the way of not judging ourselves too much comes from not taking ourselves too seriously,
Yeah.
and also not taking everything personally. Now,
Correct.
how do
Correct.
you do that? Every time you make a decision, some parts are about you and some parts are about your work, and or some parts are about your choice, or things that you do. But we mix both of them. If
Yeah.
you cook something great, you believe I am great. Not you, but all of us do,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm like this chef or whatever. And if we screw up, and if we don't do a good job of it, then we suddenly go into that zone like, oh my God, I think I should have done this, I should have tried that.
Yeah.
So we become self-critical. The very moment we start separating us from the work, you say, okay, I'm going to try this recipe and I'm going to figure this out. It may fail, it may not, but this is an experiment. And when we start doing it, then we become pretty much like the physical helper to the recipe to come alive.
Yeah.
Similarly with work, and we take, especially entrepreneurs, identify with their work way too much than other people. They believe my company is doing well, that means I
It's
am
my
doing
life.
well. This is where the biggest struggle happens. So I believe one of the things that can really help you is to consciously on a daily basis ask yourself, was it really me, or how can I differentiate between these two things, my work and myself, my choice of whatever I choose, from dressing to destination? Because judging yourself comes from having people around you who judged you a lot while growing up. So when you're trying to fit into everyone else's environment, their preferences, it becomes your second nature.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're going to speak about your signature in the end in our segment called Autograph Please, but here I have to talk about this. The way you sign, you write only N, and then you write your surname, and there are other letters. But with that, you really adjust a lot. Anytime it comes to your preferences, doing things your way, you're like, no, let me take everybody else into consideration. And if other people are not happy, if they are not up for it, if they are not like excited about it, then you wait, or you mold, or you change, or you alter. And that is, that is definitely a lot of work in relationship, but also it is being extremely sensitive to other people's needs, and they feel very happy being around you. But most times, I would not even say at times, most time you do it at the cost of your own preferences.
Wow, really? I thought I was, being the difficult one, or like I know I'm a little bit of a people pleaser. I do feel that like I just want everyone to have a good time, right? So if it's something as basic as planning a trip, I want to make sure that everyone's needs or requirements are met. They're comfortable. There's no like bad vibe, or like, oh, I was just pushed to do this, because you just know, right? People around you. So I know that if someone wasn't doing that for me, and I got upset or whatever, I'd be vocal about it, because
Mhm.
I am that person as well. If something's bothering me, it's going to come up somehow, unfortunately, like a bubbling, little volcano.
Pressure. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
pressure
but
cooker. Like one
yeah,
fine day, whistle
yeah.
blow.
But that's interesting to sort of hear, from an impartial perspective, where yeah, with the signature at least, that's almost like, for me, seems like a little unbelievable. I'm like, acha.
I know. And this is where handwriting or graphology really helps. We have different ideas of ourselves, and we believe that I am this and I'm that because they're all subjective ideas. This is how you think you are. But that neutral perspective, that objective perspective, how would we have about minute behaviors? Even if you take a psychometric test where you are answering the questions, you are answering the questions. So
Yeah.
you may influence them, and consciously you may choose to do that, but subconsciously you will do it because your understanding of you
You
is
is
always colored. And here, every time, sometimes while going through difficult phases in my life, every single phase, I remember writing down on a piece of paper some sample of writing and looking at it after 2-3 days, because that time it is still active in my mind to see what exactly going on. And that's a great tool. I have a question for you. So after 12 years of seeing people date one another and getting it wrong or right in whichever way, what are your 3 to 5 things to tell our listeners to keep in mind when they use dating as an option to find people, online dating to be precise?
the first thing would be is to always pick a medium that resonates with who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to sort of say there's something wrong with the matrimonial.coms or this or that or traditional matchmakers, but if that's not who you are, just don't kid yourself, right? Because it just throws you under you're throwing yourself under the bus, right? So if you go on a .com which has the word marriage in it, and you're not the kind of person to meet like 3 times and get engaged, then you're just signing yourself up for trouble. So identify how you want to do it. If you feel like you want to meet people organically only through your friends and relatives and family, great, stick to that.
Stick
But
to that.
because you're most comfortable with it, but also have the wisdom after every sort of couple of months or years to reanalyze where you're at, right? We all also change. I mean, I've tried the whole arranged marriage thing at an early age because we didn't have anything else, and conditioning, right? Let's be honest. My mom was like, go meet a guy. I'm like, okay. I also took it very lightly back then. But then with time, I realized, hey, this is not my scene.
So
So
how
that
did you
would be
meet your
one,
husband?
through a friend, thankfully.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a whole which probably brings me to my second thing. I think relationships are an investment. You have to sort of, there is no perfection, right? This is all in our head, or it's pop culture, it's what you see, but you know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, but it's work in progress. So comparisons to, oh, my friends have it like this, oh, my friend's seeing a guy and he did this for her, he booked like a trip to the Maldives as a surprise birthday, why isn't my partner doing that? These are very real things that I see people discussing, and I'm like, wow. But it's investment, right? So there's this beautiful analogy that I think some American psychologists came up with. It's like a box. It's like marriage or relationship is like a box. You keep putting stuff into it, right? You just don't take stuff out. You also need to keep filling it, as does your partner. The third thing I would say is be open-minded. It is such an underrated thing. Like you said, we're far too judgmental. Snap judgments is like our middle name, right? Because you
True.
Google everything. Do you want to eat at this place tonight? The
You
first
first
thing you
Google.
do, yeah, you'll read a review and you'll be like, listen, the last 5 people have not enjoyed their soba noodles. I will not go here. So, unfortunately, we can't do the same with people. I know plenty of folks who've met someone, they started seeing each other in like 4 weeks. The emotions were completely different. In like, I don't know, 14 months, they decide to get engaged.
Mm.
How do you know what's going to work for you or not if you're not open-minded,
True.
right? And I would say the last thing is like communicate openly in your relationship. It's something we've also spoken about earlier, and like, I know it's one can be the most articulate person and you can have all your thoughts like ready to go, but you can still have communication issues. But
Of
these are
course.
very so if you meet someone on an app and they're looking to hook up and you're not, just be honest and open at that point. If you've met a guy twice, or someone's gone out on a date with this really nice girl, it's been 3 months and you're not feeling it, you feel there's no future here, just be honest, communicate with each other and tell them that, right? Instead of ghosting, disappearing, falling off the grid. Like, that's just something I feel that's so bizarre. Like, Aditi, I can't relate to it. Like, I don't even ghost. Like, if some random person writes to me for like an internship, I will reply. I'll be like, "Arey, tujhe jawab chahiye." You're probably like looking at your inbox saying, "I've written to 10 people. Someone will reply to me."
Right.
I always just respond to someone saying, "Hey, I would love to do this," or I'd have to decline, or like, I know like we've been trying to catch up, and do this
Sure.
for so long, but I've always been honest about where I am at that given. So within any relationship, I would not say not just like romantic, love oriented. I mean, it's love with your parents, your coworkers, your siblings. Just articulate what you're feeling, because I think our culture is also about not expressing all the time.
Hiding.
Yeah,
Hiding. Yeah. True.
hiding.
True.
And like even I see that dynamic with parents and their kids. Like
So much.
yeah, they may have really evolved, traveled the world, and it's like, I can't tell my dad that.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? Why?
True.
Like women come to me and they're like, my parents are still expecting me to marry a Marwari. I'm like, well, not to get all
Mm.
Oprah on you, but that's your battle to fight. You can't like have me call your mother, yeah, and tell her that you don't want
True.
to do this. So I think these are short, small, I mean, difficult things to do, but I think if we actively work on them, you will break through. Just being open minded has a lot to do with also just, you know, letting positive changes come into your life. I think somewhere it is interlinked, right? It's not just about saying, no, let's close the door right now, because you could be doing that in 15 other ways. You could be closing the door on your career. You could be closing the door on your own personal goals because you're just like, no, no, it doesn't work for me.
True.
So I think these are things everyone can do, honestly.
Next question.
It was about something you said. When people who work very hard to build something on their own are very passionate about it. This is maybe a little related to work as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you've literally blood, sweat, and tears to create a business, to create relationships, foster them, build them over time. And sometimes, not sometimes, actually, a lot of times, I think I also brought this up with you last year, where I noticed that because of the stress of the lockdown and COVID and things that people were going through, sometimes they're just frustrated, right? Or they're not in a good place and they take that out on a service or someone they're working with. Because also, relationships, what I do is very, very sensitive and personal to people. It's actually life changing, right?
Of
If you
course.
end up dating someone, I'm not even going to get to like, something more set in stone. Even if you're in a short relationship or you're spending a lot of time with somebody, your personalities rub off on each other. There's major impact in the smallest
True.
ways that you do not even see. Like suddenly you'll find yourself ordering more Asian food because he likes it,
Yeah.
or like you're watching this kind of film because it's something they introduced you to 2 weeks ago. So yeah, sorry, my question's a little long-winded, but
No, go ahead.
you know what I mean. It's just like, this is very personal and sensitive, and
Sure.
sometimes I feel like you have maybe a clash at work, or you're dealing with somebody who just doesn't see your point of view,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything, the truth is not absolute. There's always
Yep.
versions of it, right?
True.
And so their truth may be this and your truth may be that. I don't know, how do you advise, or how do you sort of suggest um, being at peace with tackling that situation, but not compromising on your integrity? Like, you didn't screw up,
Mm-hmm.
right? You didn't do anything wrong, but at the same time, you're like, do I really want to have it out with this person? You pick your battles, right? Or how do you make peace with that and move on? In a way where it stops. You spoke about this, it does affect us personally, right?
True.
Because we tend to see it as one. It's easier said than done to be able to split that. But what
True.
are your ways of coping, fixing, or like self-adjusting, to sort of be a little more objective and detached, if that's.
Oh, that's a loaded question with so many nuances to it. So before I answer the question, I'm gonna articulate the question one more time. You're saying that when somebody is in a relationship, dating, short-term relationship, but serious in nature, so that you have acclimatize yourself with the other person quite a bit, and now you realize that some parts of their behavior are not acceptable. And you say, now what do I do? Like some parts I
And this
like.
could also be work related, Aditi. I think, in fact, I would say it's sometimes a graph that we go through with our clients. Like some of them are super smooth. We love working with them. We're happy to, like, we even renew their membership. And then some are just like, feels like pulling your hair out, because you're just like, ye kya hai? So what are just maybe ways to cope with that?
Okay. So I'm going to talk about your relationship with your clients, and I'm going to walk into my professional journey a bit.
Yeah.
So being a coach and also with graphology, most of the time I am approached by people when they're dealing with the toughest phase of their life, like a transition or a divorce or things that are not working, or when they want to really crack through this big challenge and be better than what they were. In all these situations, they're uncomfortable, they're cranky, they're irritable, and all these behaviors are so clear in their handwriting and in their nature that it is difficult to deal with situations. So my thumb rule is, whenever people bring in their emotions, their behaviors, all of that in the session, they're not talking to me, talking to somebody. They want to solve this problem. So if they're throwing something at me, it's because they cannot hold it back. So the very moment you step away from the emotional bombardment that happens, you'll be able to see things for what they are. And also having an understanding into being, their own journeys, which also for me happens through handwriting. So I really understand if somebody's dealing with anxiety, a small change, a small shift in their say calendar date or anything that we do becomes like a big issue, and then they use you as a punching bag to just express what is happening. So fundamentally, not reacting to their so-called behavior comes from constant journaling. It's a thumb rule. It's a something that when the team who handles clients always to do this, because when you journal, you understand that the person is reacting in a certain way, and you have a choice whether to react or not. So that's first one. Second one, if people are throwing certain tantrums over and over again, I'm going to step back and talk about personality at large. I also believe that it is yours to look at. If you have certain people showing up in your experience in your work environment over and over again, yes, that is your client's requirement. They will be frustrated because they're going through a phase, or the lockdown was such that people were more anxious. Still, if it is showing in your environment over and over again, there is something called tact that all of us can develop. So if there are repetitive behaviors, then you say, okay, can I try this option? Oh, I don't think that worked last 3 times I tried it. Can I try something else? Can I figure something else? So that whole curiosity of asking yourself, what else is possible? What can I do? What can I say? How can I phrase this sentence? Can I stop here, put my foot down, or should I like take a back seat? Now, these are the negotiations which you will have to do with different people to see, one, what is your style? And second, what works the best in a situation like that. But you cannot do it. All of us cannot do this when we take these remarks personally, or we become egoistic about how we should be treated, right? And I know so many people, even in my profession, they go like, but how could this person speak with me like this? But no, they were not speaking with you. They were trying to emote, and they were like trying to say, they felt this is a space to do that. So in my case, when people have reacted and people have said, what is this bullshit? I don't agree with your point of view. I remember sitting there and saying, okay, it's okay if you don't agree. Is it okay if we conclude this session, or do you want the money back? So when I kind of became calmer instead of like getting aggravated, and you can't pretend to do that. That's the biggest problem. If you pretend to do that, it sounds so artificial. But if you genuinely understand the context, and if you become calmer, it is biggest diffuser is being calm in this situation. Because people are trying to get your reaction so that they get the frustration companion, to banter with, or to kind of have that back and forth with. And we do it when we really do not feel important enough in our lives, and we want to feel the entitled importance in a service industry like that. And that's why people behave with restaurant staff in a certain way, or like house help in a certain way, because there the authority is unquestioned. So then you can do whatever you want to do, and that authority is still maintained. And this is what we got to change or shift when it comes to these perspectives. I have to look at your one letter in your writing, that is lowercase letter T, and it is written with a point at the end. It's like a little cross that you make. You do not have the softer point at the bottom, and that talks about being very blunt, straightforward, and saying things as they are.
Whoa.
Another aspect of your writing where you have pointed formations, very angular kind of formation, that talks about your analytical skill and your speed of execution and your desire to move forward. Are you an impatient person? No, you're not. But are you a quick person? Yes, you are. So there is a difference. Impatient people really want to finish things and move to the next level, but you tend to be very fast. So if you are given a task, if you can do it in 3 hours, you want to do it in 2 hours, not because you want to rush to the next one, because you think that I can be more efficient, I can find the quickest possible way. And that pursuit is mostly misunderstood by others around you, but this is who you are. So once you train people, they get with the program, they see the value in why you function the way you do. But until they do not, they keep wondering, why is she rushing, why is she being impatient? So next time anybody tells you that you are an impatient person, please disagree, or at least don't take that feedback to heart.
No, that's great to hear. I always thought that it just was genetic and came from my mother because she is that kind of person.
So what other question do you have?
So this is something else that I was thinking about as well. Like sometimes I feel like I am an intuitive person. I also get into a zone which is very dreamy, like I don't know, just imagining the future or situation. I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing, because in fact you should visualize things that you'd want to achieve someday, or things that you'd like to imbibe. So I see it as that. I don't see it as a this is my escapist kind of dream world where I zone out and then I just but sometimes I feel like when I do feel strongly about something, right, desire to fulfill, I also feel that I'm equally chicken shit to execute. It'll just be festering and I'll be like, yeah, not now, because work is too busy, this is happening in the family, or like socially I can't do it. But the truth of it is, I don't know if I can or cannot do it. I need to try, right? So I don't know, this is something I feel I'm stuck with. But
Okay. So first thing first, are you an intuitive person? Partially, yes. There are so many times you have these ideas that come to you and you can see them clearly. You can, palpably experience it way before they happen or they come true. And then you pretty much use them as your guiding GPS mechanism, and you kind of use them, like literally you're like, oh, I felt that one very strongly about it. Now, coming to your next point, you said that, am I a daydreamer? So in handwriting, we have a peculiar stroke for daydreaming where when you write your letter T, the horizontal line, if it flies off in the
okay.
air, those people are clear daydreamer. You do not have that anywhere in your writing. So I would say, sorry, I do not think you're a daydreamer. You're rather an end result oriented person. Coming back to the comment that you made in the beginning, if you commit to something, if you say this is what I want to do, you want to make sure that you deliver on that promise, you do everything in your capacity. And I believe that you believe one should always under promise and over deliver, so that you're not necessarily disappointing people. So when you walk that path, when you always behave in a cautious manner, now the experience of not committing to the experiment or the larger game or the risk, yes, there are two major challenges we have. And I'm going to explain this. It may sound really weird to hear these concepts, but just stay with me for next 5 minutes. One is called fear of failure. We all understand that. You're like, oh, okay, fear of failure. I may fail, and then I may feel embarrassed, and I don't want that. So I might as well cut that possibility. So I'm just being cautious. So on one side, you do have fear of failure. And on the other side, you have something called fear of success.
Really? That's like the
It is literally like these two, yaha kua, waha khai. I think that's a term in Hindi, but it's literally like weighing both these options. And so, what fear of success means that if I become successful very quickly beyond someone else, in my family or other people around me, then that might create a challenge in the future, a problem in the future. To avoid that future possible problem, we tend to duck down, hide, not achieve what is possible. And the two handwriting strokes that talk about it are, first one, fear of failure, is where your second hump in the letter M is taller than the first one. And the second one, what I said, is fear of success, is when you're writing your letter Y, lowercase y, you complete the loop, and by the end of the loop, you kind of tilt that loop little down. So instead of going all the way to the neck of the letter A, G or Y, there's a little neck there. So instead of going up there, the letter turns and
You're
it
like,
goes
bus,
down.
ho gaya. इससे
बस हो
आगे
गया,
नहीं.
मतलब
I don't want to go
फ्लाइट
higher.
जा रही थी दिल्ली, एंड दिल्ली से सडनली you're like, oh no, I think Calcutta जाना चाहिए. So suddenly you change your plan and you withdraw at the last minute. Have you seen yourself doing that when it comes to receiving credit for the work you've done? You shy away from that.
I do. I don't feel very comfortable with it. Like, I don't want the limelight.
Yep. That is one of the quickest way to identify fear of success. So limelight, recognition, people praising, also setting that standard so high that you have to constantly out create that standard, that becomes pressurizing.
We had a client from Singapore who's just so full of praise for us. Like, once, I think on New Year's, she wrote me an email. It was like literally, Aditi, like a one-page love letter. I was so embarrassed. I was just like, guys, I hope no one, like, I marked it as unread quickly so that, these guys, I was just like, this is making me blush, literally, goosebumps, adrenaline. Because I don't know. Again, I'm going back to sort of maybe how we were raised. I feel like also as Indian parents don't pat you on the back for everything, right?
I wouldn't generalize that, Nan. I would say
Okay, my
your parents didn't. Yeah.
Like, they just be like, acha, okay, great, you like topped this English class, okay, great, chalo khane ke liye. I don't know, it was just never a big deal. Maybe that's how they were sort of brought up. It's not like they didn't shower praise, attention, love. In fact, I see that pride now, after we're all grown up and like we've had our careers, we've chosen people we want to be with, we've moved on with our lives. Now it's just like my mother though walks around with this inflated chest everywhere. She's like, my kids are doing this, and the second one's doing this, the third one is doing this. I'm like, bus, But maybe because they felt like, I don't know, this was the way to mold us, or like they didn't get that. Maybe it comes from that whatever I'm doing is good, but it's not a big deal. Because like 5 other people can do it too. So true. I don't know, it just made me think of that.
That could be one, but also professionally, I feel it is more of an adult trait that develops when you start working, and when you got recognized over others, you saw the repercussions of that. You saw how it made other people uncomfortable, and that created unnecessary competition in their minds, and then you had to deal with it. You said, I might as well stay away from all of this and focus on my work. So that, I feel, is a bigger reason to have fear of success than your parenting. So let's go to the next segment of our conversation called Autograph Please. Now, for our listeners and viewers who do not know why we do this segment, so your signature talks about your public image, how we are different when we step into a party, when we talk to formal people, but at home, we are different people. Now, graphologically speaking, your handwriting talks about who you are when you are at home or when you are in your bedroom by yourself, expressing yourself. And then signature talks about how you behave when you step into your public zone. And we all have these two faces. We all have these masks that we wear, and we, behave in a particular manner. And we are trained like that. Socially we are said, logo ke samne thode na aise kehte hain. Now, from that small comment like that to a larger idea of how people should think, I'm successful or I'm not successful, whatever. So we constantly give away these signals, and your handwriting and signature captures them specifically. So, Naina, I'm going to tell you how you are misunderstood by people because of the gap in your signature and your handwriting.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to be specific about it. One point that I already mentioned, you come across as an independent person, very clear with your idea, and also you're blunt in the way you express yourself. So people believe that you're highly independent, but in reality, that is not true. You do not like too much of freedom. You don't like too much of independence. You love your family. You love that small circle that you function from. And as you mentioned, like when you're making decisions, you will pick up a phone and call a friend, call your husband, call somebody to kind of bounce your ideas with. So the whole impression of being an independent woman that you have been giving to people is not true.
That's true. That's true. You're absolutely right.
Thank you. Second thing is, people do look at you as an impatient person, and you also, because of the speed and an excitement that you get into. So once you get excited, that's also one of the things, especially in public, when you are getting the whole team excited about the same concept that you are excited about, you turn into this very, very large personality, and you wonder where that comes from. You do not behave like that otherwise, but when you have to get a team going, there is a larger voice, and you're more inspirational, and you're like, oh, where did I read this quote? I don't have no clue, but it's coming right now. And
That's true.
there's an immense flow and the role of like a motivator or motivational speaker that you walk into, and that happens like quite often.
Yeah, I think any also like work-wise leadership roles, right? You just need to sort of get everyone on the same track. And like we said, more so even now, because I felt like we were giving so much support to other people, but we don't realize how we need that support ourselves, right? I would tell them in a bossy way, I'm like, please meditate. It's not an option. Because I'm like, you have to train your mind to sort of disconnect from this 24/7, sort of, or very intense behavior, right? Or like getting them together because we want to get something done. And it's so funny you say this, because we've been like, March has been a crazy month, and we were just trying to close everything because we had a long weekend, and like the India teams are off. I don't want anyone working on a Monday, right? If they're supposed to be like just chilling at home. And so this colleague of mine, she was so funny. She's like, have you seen Hum Hai Rahi Pyar Ke, that 90s film? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I'm like the one with baby Kunal Khemu. That's the first thing I thought of. I don't know why. And she's like, do you know that scene in the film where Amir Khan's factory is about to shut down? All the women just get together and they're like, "मैं 10 रुमाल बनाऊंगी, मैं 15 रुमाल बनाऊंगी," you know. And it's so like, I cracked up. I even wanted to like, I was in half a mind to like go on YouTube and be like, let me just like look at the scene again. But she's like, that's what you're doing for us. Like, that's how it feels like, right? Because I've also learned that if you want to encourage people, you have to embody that, right? Yourself. You can't just, like they say, pardon my French, but talk out of your ass. Like you have to be what they want to see. So and I used to teach also earlier, so Aditi, I don't know if that, it's also like, I'm very passionate about education, because I spent half my life studying a different curriculum, and then I moved to India, and I figured that a lot of what we do is just learning by rote. It was not immersing yourself. In fact, I was giving lectures at my previous colleges and stuff like that. I was tutoring kids as well, and they all felt like, oh my God, we can change the world, like our journalism will change the world. And the reality is, you may go out there and it may not happen. But I always felt like, even if I can impact 5 to 10 people out of a class of 80, my work is done.
Great.
Like those 5 people will go out there and kill it. And that's good enough.
True. No, also you do have this mother hen kind of, let me take responsibility of the whole gang, and we as a group, as a team will move forward one day. and that's delightful, especially in a profession that you are, which requires empathy to
Yeah.
great degree. And if very few professions allow that, especially where people have become so objective and so critical of one another. It breaks my heart to see how people just look at a photograph and say yes, no, swipe
Yeah.
left and right. And I feel, oh my god, I'm sure beauty is way more than the photograph that you're seeing, and the person is much deeper. We
Yeah.
do not give people that true chance. So I
It's
believe through your venture, you're actually letting people explore one another.
absolutely. It's something we also say. Like, you may meet someone, you may come away with like, 10 stereotypes that you inferred, right? Um, I always tell them, I'm like, one interaction, it's like peeling an onion. How do you
Yeah.
know everything based on one chat? That not only is it very unfair to the other person, it's also unfair to yourself. So it's something
But
that,
also, something interesting that I learned about Sirf Coffee is that you do not give photographs.
no.
What all
No,
you do not give. That was so fascinating. I was so happy to even, have that possibility to not have
this this
face.
this scares all the guys, right? They're just like, what? Who will I be set up with? So that's what I tell them. I'm like, you'll have to trust, right? You'll have to take a leap of faith. And I always tell people, we're also here to hear you out. Not only is the process intuitive, it's also interactive, where you can give
Mhm.
feedback, you can get feedback, and that's really a game changer right there. So I think once someone commits, right, to this, then they do sort of open up. Like they're just like, look, I trust you. You've been doing this for 12 years. Let's give this a stab. But then every now and then you will sort of have that person who wants to micro analyze every single thing, because like you said, just we're all beyond our faces, right? And what
True.
you read on a sheet of paper, more so because this whole analogy that you have about that signature and the handwriting difference, the biggest analogy of that is like a biodata, where people sound so
True.
good. They're like, went to this B school, went to Harvard Business School. And then when you meet them, you'll know, acha, it was a 3-month diploma.
Yep.
It wasn't even like, an MBA or something, but which is fine.
Yeah,
Which is
but
fine.
I do say this, that we meet each other's signatures and we are stuck with the handwriting, which is a true personality forever. So people do that.
Absolutely. So this whole like making yourself great on paper in whatever way is something that we have to like kill every time. We're just like, yeah,
True.
it's okay. I don't need like praises, paragraphs of praises of you. It's not required. Let us sort of, you said it already. We like to under promise and over deliver. That's just our style, right? I think that's my style as well, where I'm just like, try something out, and if you really really love it, you'll go and tell 5 people, right?
True.
And that's something that I experienced with you as well. Like I tell every second person about you, whoever I think needs to come, because I feel like this can really help you because I've tried it myself,
True.
right? And I think that just becomes such a huge trust, like this connector between people, between
True.
situations, that the whole world is moving with this trust, right? Like it's just where, I mean, I'm sitting here and bearing my soul. Okay, that's dramatic, but whatever said and done is because there's an element of trust between us.
Of course.
So
True.
it's just one of those things that we've learned to articulate and be honest about, rather than hide it under the brush it under the carpet and just be like, no, no, you are right, you know
Hmm.
everything you say is right. It's like, no, sometimes people need to hear a different perspective. They may not like it, but it's again, maybe goes back to my, I don't know, I have some desh bhakti kind of like this you know trait of just being honest at all times.
Thank you for making this whole process so humane and making it like, like something that you can openly evolve with. I think that's why when I met you for the first time, I was like so surprised to see that it is not an objective algorithm based process, but it is about conversation, interaction, and understanding the person, which is, I think, my favorite part of any human experience, when
Yeah.
you get to take time to understand the other person. Thank you so much, Naina, for being on the show. And thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful things. I think all our listeners who are in the dating space and dating age will remember all of that and be more open than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditi. It was a real pleasure, as always.
After talking to Naina, I feel slightly more open about the online dating options. She said, be open minded, isn't it? I think I should consider for sure. In any case, if I meet a stranger, I can always use handwriting analysis to know deeper aspects of that person. And dating becomes much easier than what you can imagine. Now, if you have that as a concern, you don't want to waste time dating random people, wrong people, go ahead, learn graphology with me. The masterclass starts on 1st of May 2021. All you got to do is go on the website aditisurana.com and register yourself so that my team can talk to you and we can figure out how this 4-week power pack program can talk about 20 different graphology based traits and blow your mind on so many areas that you can't even imagine. So if you're fascinated, you're still wondering, oh, graphology works, how does it work, how can she talk about so many things, you can do that too. Come join us on this beautiful program. So on a Friday episode, I'm going to talk about focus, concentration. So many people have all these assumptions about, oh my god, I can't focus, my concentration is so poor, and all these ideas also come from their childhood understanding of how to focus. So let's understand as adults, what can we do to focus on the right things and enjoy them by being engrossed and engaged and involved with them. Now, all the tips and tricks and hacks, I'm going to talk about all of that on a Friday episode. So I'll see you on Friday. Till then, happy writing.